The test results were in. Positive. That was the moment my world stopped turning. Sitting in my truck, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white, I stared at the paper in my lap. It felt like a joke, like some twisted prank the universe was playing on me. But the clinic didn't make mistakes like this. Megan gave me this. My wife. The woman I had loved for over a decade. The woman who, just 3 months ago, had sat across from me at the dinner table and suggested we explore an open marriage to spice things up. I should have known then. The way she laughed it off like it was no big deal. It's just a fantasy, she had said, twirling her fork in her pasta. Everyone does it these days. Not me. I told her no, of course. Shut it down right away. But something shifted after that conversation. Megan got distant. She started working late, always on her phone, taking calls outside, dressing up just to run to the store. I wasn't stupid. I felt the change, but I pushed the thoughts away. Because what kind of man wants to believe his wife is screwing around behind his back? Then this. A goddamn positive STD test. I drove home in a haze, my heart hammering against my ribs. The moment I stepped inside, there she was, lounging on the couch, scrolling through her phone like she had no care in the world. Hey, babe, she said without looking up. I stood in the doorway, that paper burning a hole in my fist. Megan. My voice came out hoarse. We need to talk. Her eyes flicked up, and for a second, just a split second, there was something there. A hesitation. A flicker of something she tried to smother. I walked over, tossed the paper onto the coffee table in front of her. Explain this. She glanced down, and then, it was the weirdest thing. No shock. No panic. Just a slow blink before she let out a breathy little laugh. Oh my God. You're being so dramatic. Dramatic. My chest tightened. I tested positive for something I shouldn't have. And considering I've only ever been with you. She groaned, throwing her head back against the couch. Okay, calm down. First of all, those tests aren't always accurate. You're kidding, right? I don't know, Ethan. Maybe you got it before we were together. She waved a dismissive hand, like we were talking about misplacing car keys and not her wrecking our marriage. My vision blurred. We've been together since college. I got tested before we got engaged. She rolled her eyes. Well, then maybe. Don't you dare say it was me. I cut her off, my voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. Because we both know that's not true. So let's try this again. Who have you been with? A heavy silence stretched between us. She looked at me, her mouth slightly open like she was about to speak, but no words came out. Then she scoffed. You're overreacting. That was it. That was all she had. Something inside me snapped. I stormed down the hall, straight to our bedroom, yanking open drawers, rummaging through her things. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for, but I needed proof more than just a stupid test result. Megan was right behind me, her voice climbing in pitch. Are you serious right now? Jesus, Ethan, stop going through my stuff. My hands dug through her nightstand. Perfume. A stack of old receipts. My stomach twisted when I saw one from a fancy hotel across town. Just last week. 1 room. 1 bed. I held it up, turning to face her. This is where you've been, working late? She crossed her arms, tilting her chin up defiantly. It's not what you think. I let out a sharp, humorless laugh. You know, that's funny. Because what I think is that my wife has been screwing someone else behind my back, caught an infection, and then came home and smiled in my face like nothing was wrong. Her jaw clenched. Don't act like some victim. Excuse me. She threw her hands up. Ethan, come on. Our marriage has been dead for years. You're so boring. You don't make me feel excited anymore. The words hit like a gut punch. So instead of talking to me, you, what? Sneak around? Lie to my face? Give me something I can't get rid of. She rolled her eyes again. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. I turned, yanked open the closet, and grabbed her suitcase. I tossed it onto the bed and started shoving her clothes inside. Megan's face twisted. What the hell are you doing? What does it look like? I spat. You're leaving. She let out a harsh laugh. Oh, please. You don't get to just kick me out of my own house. I stepped closer, my pulse roaring in my ears. Watch me. Her expression faltered just a bit. You're really gonna throw away everything over this? Over this? I gestured wildly. Megan, you cheated. You lied. You put my health at risk. Yeah, I think that's enough reason to throw it all away. For the first time, something flickered in her eyes. Not guilt. Not remorse. Annoyance. Like I was inconveniencing her. She exhaled, snatching the suitcase off the bed. Fine. Whatever. She stormed past me, then paused in the doorway, throwing one last glare over her shoulder. You're making a huge mistake. And then she was gone. I stood there, my whole body trembling, staring at the empty space she left behind. And somehow, I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The silence in the house felt unnatural. After Megan stormed out, suitcase in hand, I expected to feel some kind of relief. But instead, a gnawing restlessness settled deep in my gut. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I spent the next hour pacing, replaying every conversation, every moment I'd ignored. The late nights. The new lingerie I never saw her wear for me. The girls' trips where she barely picked up my calls. I had been blind. Stupid. Grabbing my phone, I did what I should have done weeks ago. I called a private investigator. Yeah, a gruff voice answered. I need to find out who my wife has been screwing, I said bluntly. And I need it fast. By the next morning, I had a name. Jason Carter. A married man. 2 kids. Worked in finance. Some high-earning prick who probably thought he could do whatever he wanted without consequences. I clenched my jaw, staring at the photos the PI sent me. Megan and Jason. In his car. At a hotel. Sitting at some fancy restaurant, laughing over a bottle of wine. This wasn't just a one-time thing. This was a full-blown affair. A sharp pain twisted in my chest, but I pushed it down. No more emotions. No more waiting. It was time to hit back. I went straight to his house. The neighborhood was the kind of place with perfect lawns and matching mailboxes. I parked across the street, watching the house, my pulse hammering. The thought of facing him, of seeing the guy who had been touching my wife, made my hands shake with fury. Then, as if on cue, the front door opened. Jason Carter stepped out in a tailored suit, adjusting his tie. Behind him, a woman appeared. His wife. She kissed his cheek, completely unaware that her husband was a lying scumbag. A fresh wave of anger surged through me. She deserved to know. I waited until Jason pulled out of the driveway. Then I got out of my truck and walked straight to the front door. She answered after the second knock, looking confused. Can I help you? I took a breath. I'm Ethan Walker. My wife has been sleeping with your husband. Her face went pale. What? I pulled out my phone, showing her the photos. Her hand flew to her mouth, her body swaying slightly like she might collapse. Oh my God, she whispered. I'm sorry, I said, though I wasn't sure why. She stared at the pictures, her breathing uneven. Then, without warning, she turned and stormed inside. Come in. I hesitated, but followed. The house was spotless, decorated with soft colors and expensive furniture. A home built on lies, just like mine. She paced the living room, running a hand through her hair. I knew something was off. He's been working late for months. I sat down on the couch. Same with Megan. She let out a bitter laugh. Of course. God, I feel so stupid. I exhaled sharply. Yeah, welcome to the club. She sank into the chair across from me, staring at the photos again. Then her expression hardened. What are you going to do? Divorce. The word came out without hesitation. I already kicked her out. A flicker of something admiration crossed her face. Good. She doesn't deserve you. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I just nodded. Then she straightened, a new fire in her eyes. I want revenge. That caught my attention. What kind of revenge? She leaned forward, lowering her voice. I want him humiliated. I want him to feel the kind of betrayal he's put me through. A slow smirk tugged at my lips. I think we can make that happen. We sat there, plotting. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt something other than rage. I felt in control. Revenge wasn't just an idea anymore. It was a necessity. Samantha, Jason's wife, wasn't the crying, helpless type. She was angry, sharp, and ready to make her cheating husband's life a living hell. I respected that. After sitting in her living room for an hour, going through every bit of evidence, we had a plan. Step 1. Exposure. I still had Megan's access to our shared cloud storage. A quick search pulled up an entire folder labeled Work Trips. Cute. Inside? Screenshots of text messages, hotel reservations, even a few compromising selfies she must have sent Jason. Disgusting, but useful. I turned my phone to Samantha, letting her scroll. Her eyes narrowed. They didn't even try to hide it. Nope. She exhaled sharply, then tapped on one of the messages. This is gold. It was from Megan. Wish we had more time together. Ethan is starting to ask questions, but I'll tell him whatever I need to. I clenched my fists, lying straight to my face. Samantha stood abruptly, pacing. I have a friend. She's a lawyer. She's ruthless. If you want to hit Megan where it hurts, I can put you in touch. I nodded. Do it. But I wasn't done yet. Jason's office, I said. He works in finance, right? Samantha smirked. Oh, yeah. And guess what? His firm has a strict moral conduct clause. If I send this to HR. I grinned. That's what I like to hear. We got to work. Samantha compiled everything into a neat little email, hotel receipts, texts, even a shot of Megan and Jason in the hotel lobby, holding hands like they were some sweet, innocent couple. Then, with a single click, she sent it off to Jason's boss, CCing just enough people to make sure it spread like wildfire. Step 2. The public reveal. Megan had been flaunting herself all over social media, posting selfies from business trips that were really her and Jason's little getaways. So, I used her own platform against her. I posted a simple update on my own page. When your wife suggests an open marriage, check for STDs first. Then hire a PI. Then change the locks. The reaction was instant. Friends, family, even people we hadn't spoken to in years were commenting, messaging, asking what happened. Then someone, probably Samantha, dropped a link to the evidence folder. And that's when the real chaos started. Megan called within minutes. I let it ring. She called again. Then texted. Ethan, what the hell are you doing? Oh, now she cared? I finally picked up on the third call, putting her on speaker. Samantha sat across from me, arms crossed, listening. Megan's voice was shrill. Are you insane? Do you know how humiliating this is? I leaned back in my chair. Oh, I'm humiliating you? That's rich. You had no right to air our private business like that. I laughed. Megan, you gave me an STD and lied about it. You lost your rights a long time ago. She huffed. I made a mistake, okay? But this is childish. Childish. Samantha cut in. Cheating on your husband for months and playing the victim is childish. Megan went silent. Who the hell is that? Samantha grinned. Your boyfriend's wife. A long pause. Then Megan let out a nervous chuckle. Wow, you two are really bonding over this, huh? That's cute. Maybe you should go on a date. Samantha's eyes darkened. Maybe we will. Megan scoffed. Ethan, you need to take this stuff down. Now. No. Do you have any idea what this is doing to me? People are calling me, texting me. Good, I said coldly. Now you know how it feels. She started to say something else, but I hung up. Samantha let out a low whistle. She's losing it. Good, I muttered. She deserves worse. And it turned out, worse was coming. Because the next morning, Jason lost his job. Samantha sent me the email she got from his firm termination for violating company policies. That meant no fat bonuses, no cushy benefits, no corner office. Megan, meanwhile, had gone into full meltdown mode. She was blowing up my phone, posting cryptic Instagram stories about toxic relationships and people who can't move on. I ignored all of it. But then, she showed up at my house, banging on the door like a maniac. I opened it just enough to see her face, red, furious, mascara smudged. You ruined me, she spat. No, Megan, I said, voice cold. You did. She tried to push past me, but I blocked the doorway. I don't have anywhere to go. She snapped. You kicked me out. Jason's wife won't let him see me, and everyone thinks I'm some horrible person because of you. I shrugged. Sounds like a you problem. Her jaw clenched. Ethan, please. And for the first time, I saw something real in her eyes. Not regret. Not guilt. Fear. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I stepped back. Get off my porch. And then I slammed the door in her face. I stood at the door for a few seconds, listening to Megan breathe heavily on the other side. She didn't leave right away. Instead, she let out a frustrated groan and smacked the door hard. You're a heartless bastard, Ethan. I almost laughed. Heartless? That was rich coming from the woman who had been sneaking around with another man for months, who had lied to my face over and over again, who had the audacity to cry now when everything had finally crashed down around her. Eventually, I heard her stomp away, heels clicking down my front steps. Good riddance. I turned around, exhaling slowly. The adrenaline was still coursing through my veins, but it wasn't anger anymore. It was something else. Something like satisfaction. For the first time in months, I wasn't the one getting played. I was the one taking control. But I knew this wasn't over. Megan was a lot of things, but she wasn't someone who accepted defeat easily. And I was right. By the next morning, my phone was flooded with messages from mutual friends, from family, even from Megan's mother. The story had spread like wildfire, and Megan? She was on damage control. She had started telling people that I was the bad guy, that I had driven her to this because I was emotionally unavailable and didn't care about her needs. She was spinning the whole thing like she was some victim who had been forced to cheat. Unbelievable. But that wasn't even the worst part, because then she did something even more desperate. She called my job. I was in the middle of a meeting when my boss, Greg, pulled me aside. He had this weird look on his face, like he didn't know whether to be pissed or concerned. "Ethan, can we talk?" I followed him to his office, already knowing this wasn't going to be good. He sat down and folded his hands. "Your wife called this morning." I clenched my jaw. "Ex-wife?" Greg raised an eyebrow. "Right. Well, she had some accusations." I exhaled through my nose. "Let me guess, she said I was abusive, controlling." Greg nodded slowly. "She implied some things. Nothing too direct, but enough that I had to call HR and make sure there was nothing serious going on." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Megan really had no shame. "Greg, you've known me for years. Do I seem like the type?" He sighed. "No. That's why I wanted to talk to you first. I figured there was more to the story." "There is," I said, leaning forward. "Megan cheated on me for months. Lied about it. Gave me an STD. And now that everyone knows the truth, she's trying to play the victim." Greg winced. "Jesus." "Yeah." He shook his head. "Look, I believe you. But just keep your head down for a while, all right? Don't give her any more ammo." I nodded, standing up. "Trust me, I want nothing to do with her." But Megan wasn't done. By the time I got home that night, she had sent me a long text message. "Megan, you were ruining my life. You got me kicked out, you destroyed my reputation, and now Jason won't even talk to me. Are you happy now?" I stared at my phone, debating whether to respond. But then another message popped up. "Megan, you need to stop this, Ethan. I'm serious. If you don't, I'll make sure you regret it." That made me pause. Was she threatening me? I ran a hand over my face, shaking my head. "You already regret this, don't you, Megan?" But I had no idea just how far she was willing to go. The next day, I woke up to find my car keyed. Deep, ugly scratches ran across the driver's side, and my tires had been slashed. I stood there in my driveway, breathing heavily, my fists clenching at my sides. This wasn't just desperation. This was rage. Megan had lost control, and now she was lashing out like a cornered animal. I took a picture and called the cops. An hour later, an officer arrived, jotting everything down in his little notepad. "Do you have any idea who might have done this?" I let out a short, humorless laugh. "Yeah, my ex-wife." The officer raised an eyebrow. "You got proof?" I hesitated. "No, not yet." The officer nodded slowly. "Well, we can file a report, but without evidence, there's not much we can do." Of course. But I wasn't letting this slide. Megan wanted a war? She was about to get one. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number. Samantha answered after the second ring. "What's up?" "Megan just vandalized my car." There was a pause. Then she let out a low whistle. "She's losing it." "Yeah, and I'm done playing nice." Samantha was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You want to go nuclear?" I smirked. "Let's do it." Megan thought she could get away with it. That she could spin her sob story, play the victim, and make me look like the bad guy. But she underestimated just how much fight I had left in me. Samantha and I spent the next few hours laying out a plan. If Megan wanted to drag this into the mud, I'd make sure she sank first. Step 1. Cameras. I installed security cameras around my house and driveway. If she tried something again, I'd have it all on video. I also set up a dashboard camera in my car. If she was bold enough to slash my tires once, she'd probably try again. Step 2. Legal action. Samantha put me in touch with her lawyer friend, Rachel, a shark in the courtroom and exactly the kind of person I needed on my side. I sent over all the texts, the threats, and the police report from the vandalism. Rachel assured me that if Megan tried anything else, I could file a restraining order. Step 3. The final nail in the coffin. Samantha had contacts in Jason's industry, and with a few phone calls, she made sure word spread fast about why he had been fired. Nobody wanted to hire a guy caught up in a public scandal. His reputation was toast. I was finally starting to feel in control again. But then Megan escalated things. It happened 3 nights later. I was asleep when I heard something, a loud thump outside. My heart pounded as I sat up, listening. Then another sound scraping, like someone moving against the side of the house. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the security camera feed. And there she was. Megan. Drunk, swaying on her feet, standing on my porch. My stomach twisted in disgust. She wasn't alone, either. She had Jason with her, and he looked just as wasted. They were laughing, whispering to each other. Then Megan raised a spray can and started shaking it. Oh, hell no. I stormed downstairs, throwing the door open before she could start defacing my house. What the hell do you think you're doing? Megan gasped, stumbling back like she hadn't expected to get caught. Ethan. Jason smirked, his eyes glassy. Relax, man. We were just. I swear if you finish that sentence, you'll regret it. My voice was deadly calm, but my hands were shaking from the sheer rage coursing through me. Megan scoffed. Oh, get over yourself. You already ruined my life. What's a little payback? I stepped forward, towering over her. You did that to yourself. And if you don't leave right now, I'm calling the cops. Jason crossed his arms. Oh yeah? You gonna cry to the police like a little? I didn't let him finish. I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the porch railing. His eyes went wide with panic as I pressed in close. Listen to me, you pathetic little worm, I hissed. I don't care how much of a loser you are, but if you ever come near my house again, I'll make sure you regret it. Jason swallowed hard. Oh, okay, man, chill out. I shoved him away, and he nearly tripped over his own feet. Megan's face was twisted with anger. You're insane, Ethan. I pointed at the camera above the door. And now I have video proof that you showed up here, trespassing and trying to vandalize my house. So if I were you, I'd start running. Her expression faltered. She knew I had her. Without another word, she grabbed Jason's arm and dragged him away. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I sent the footage straight to Rachel. By the afternoon, Megan was served with a restraining order. And just like that, she was done. The silence was almost unsettling. After months of chaos, it was strange not to be constantly looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next disaster. But as the days passed, I realized something. I was finally free. Megan had burned every bridge, and Jason was no better off. Last I heard, he had moved back in with his parents, unemployed and broke. Samantha had already started the divorce process, and from the way things were going, she was about to take everything from him. As for me, I was healing. Slowly, but surely. One evening, I sat on my porch with a beer in hand, watching the sunset. My phone buzzed. It was Samantha. Hey, she said. How's life without the crazy? I chuckled. Peaceful. Good. You deserve that. She paused. Listen. I know this might be weird, but do you want to grab dinner sometime? I raised an eyebrow. Is this you asking me out? She laughed. I mean, we've both been through hell. We deserve a good night, at least. I thought about it for a moment. Then I smiled. Yeah, I'd like that. Because for the first time in a long time, I was looking forward to what came next. Dinner with Samantha was exactly what I needed. No drama, no mind games, just two people who had survived the same storm, finally breathing in the calm. We met at a quiet steakhouse, the kind of place where nobody knew us and there were no prying eyes. I wasn't sure if it was a date or just a friendly meetup, but honestly, I didn't care. It felt good to be around someone who understood without me having to explain every little thing. We laughed, we shared stories, we vented about the absolute mess our exes had made of our lives. And somewhere between the second drink and her making a joke about how she should have run Jason over with her car, I realized something. I was finally happy. For months, my entire life had been about Megan, what she had done, how she had lied, how she had destroyed everything we had built. She had been this toxic weight around my neck, dragging me down into a place where I felt powerless. But now, she was gone, and I was still standing. Samantha must have noticed my shift in mood because she smirked over the rim of her glass. You just got real quiet. What's going on in that head of yours? I leaned back, exhaling. I think I just realized I'm actually okay. She grinned. About time. That night, I slept better than I had in months. But of course, Megan wasn't done. The next morning, I woke up to a notification from my bank. A $3,000 charge had just gone through. I frowned, still groggy, and clicked on the details. It was from our old joint account, the one I had thought I had removed Megan from weeks ago. My stomach dropped. I immediately called the bank, but the rep on the other end of the line gave me nothing but bad news. Since the charge had already been approved, the money was gone. The only thing I could do was file a dispute and hope they could reverse it in a few days. I gritted my teeth. Megan was stealing from me now. I called her immediately. She didn't pick up, of course, but I left a voicemail that was short and to the point. Return the money now, or I press charges. Your choice. A few minutes later, she texted back. Megan, you owe me anyway. Consider it compensation for emotional damage. I nearly threw my phone across the room. I didn't hesitate. I called Rachel, explained the situation, and within an hour, she was drafting up a legal notice. Megan had 24 hours to return the money, or we were taking her to court for fraud. I knew she didn't have that kind of cash lying around. She was broke, barely scraping by. If she didn't pay up, she was looking at serious legal trouble. But Megan? She wasn't smart enough to back down. Instead of returning the money, she doubled down. By that evening, my phone was flooded with messages from her friends, even from her father. That's when I realized just how deep the rabbit hole went. Because Megan's father? He was on her side. I didn't know the guy well. He had always been distant, barely present in our marriage. But now, suddenly, he was in the middle of this mess, sending me threats and calling me a pathetic excuse for a man for putting his daughter through this. Oh, so now he cared? I put my phone on silent. I wasn't wasting another second on Megan's drama. Instead, I focused on what mattered, getting my money back and making sure Megan finally faced the consequences of everything she had done. Rachel filed the fraud claim first thing the next morning. And then, I decided to take things one step further. I called up an investigator. Megan thought she could play dirty? Fine. Two could play that game. I wanted everything on her. Where she was staying, who she was with, what she was doing. If she had been reckless enough to steal from me, there was no telling what else she had done. By the end of the day, I had a full report sitting in my inbox. And what I found, it was worse than I expected. Megan wasn't just broke. She was desperate. She had been couch surfing between friends' places, burning through what little money she had left. And Jason? He had already bailed on her, probably realizing she wasn't worth the trouble. But the real kicker? She had another guy lined up. Some older man, mid-40s, divorced, her new savior. The kind of guy who probably had no idea what kind of chaos he was about to let into his life. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. That night, I sat back with a drink, rereading the report. Megan had spent months trying to destroy me. Lying, cheating, manipulating. She thought she was untouchable. But now, she was falling apart. And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel heartbreak. I just felt done. This was her mess now. I was finally free. Megan was circling the drain, and she knew it. The fraud case was moving forward, the bank had frozen her access to the joint account, and her so-called support system was crumbling. Jason was long gone, her friends were getting sick of her drama, and now she was clinging to some older guy who probably had no clue what kind of disaster he had invited into his life. And yet, she still wasn't done trying to drag me down with her. 3 days after I filed the fraud claim, I got an email from my employer's HR department. Subject: Urgent, Employee Conduct Review. I felt my stomach twist as I opened it. Ethan, we have received an anonymous complaint regarding allegations of financial misconduct. Please report to HR immediately for discussion. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. There was no way this was a coincidence. Megan had officially lost her damn mind. I marched straight to HR, already knowing exactly what I'd find. And sure enough, they showed me a vague, anonymous report claiming I had been embezzling funds from my company. I actually laughed, right in front of them. Do you have any evidence? I asked. The HR rep shook her head. None was provided. I folded my arms. Then why are we even having this conversation? She hesitated. It's just protocol. We investigate all claims seriously. I leaned in. Then let me make this easy for you. This isn't a real claim. My ex-wife is spiraling, and this is just her latest attempt to screw with my life. I'll provide any financial records you need to clear this up, but let's be honest, we both know this is garbage. She studied me for a moment, then sighed. Just send me whatever documentation you have. We'll close this quickly. Megan had really lost it if she thought this was going to work. I sent over my financials, and within 24 hours, the investigation was officially dead. HR even apologized for the inconvenience. But now I was pissed. I had given Megan every opportunity to walk away, to just let things go. But she kept pushing, kept scheming. Fine. She wanted a war? She was getting one. I called Rachel first. Can we add defamation to the list of things we're hitting her with? Rachel chuckled. Already ahead of you. Then I reached out to the private investigator again. Find out everything you can about this new guy she's with. I want to know what she's up to. A few hours later, I had my answer. Megan's new boyfriend? He was married. A rich, corporate guy with a wife and 2 teenage kids. I nearly choked on my coffee when I saw the pictures Megan wrapped around him outside a hotel, whispering in his ear like she was so special. Like she wasn't just repeating the same damn cycle all over again. I didn't even have to lift a finger this time. Because the investigator? He sent everything straight to the guy's wife. And within hours, Megan's world collapsed. The text started rolling in that night. First, from an unknown number. Unknown. You just ruined my life, you son of a... Blocked. Then Megan. Megan, how could you do this to me? Megan, I have nowhere to go, Ethan. I'm begging you. I stared at my phone, shaking my head in disbelief. She really had the audacity to beg me for help. After everything, I didn't even respond. Instead, I turned off my phone, grabbed a drink, and sat out on my porch, letting the cold night air settle around me. For the first time in forever, I felt completely at peace. Megan was done. No more leverage. No more tricks. No more power over me. She had burned everything to the ground. And I was finally free. The final collapse came faster than I expected. After her latest scheme failed, Megan vanished. No calls, no texts, no more pathetic attempts to manipulate me. It was like she had finally realized she had lost. Or maybe she was just too busy dealing with the fallout of her latest disaster. I heard through mutual contacts that the married guy's wife did not take the news lightly. She threw him out, froze his accounts, and from what I gathered, was gearing up for one hell of a divorce. Meanwhile, Megan had officially run out of places to stay. Her so-called friends wanted nothing to do with her. Jason was long gone. The married guy wasn't stupid enough to keep seeing her after what happened. She had burned every bridge. And now? She was alone. I should have felt something about that. Pity, satisfaction, anything. But the truth? I just didn't care anymore. Rachel called a few days later with an update. The fraud claim went through, she said, sounding almost amused. Megan has exactly one option: pay back the money, or we press criminal charges. She doesn't have it, I said simply. Exactly. We both knew how this was going to play out. Megan didn't have a job, didn't have savings, and had burned through every last bit of goodwill she had. If she didn't find a way to pay me back, she was looking at real legal trouble. And I wasn't lifting a damn finger to help her. For months, she had played games, thinking she was untouchable. Now, she was out of moves. Rachel sighed. You know, most guys in your position would be furious. They'd want revenge. I shrugged. I don't need revenge. She already destroyed herself. And that was the truth. I didn't need to fight anymore. Megan had spent months trying to ruin my life, but in the end, she had only ruined her own. I had my money back. I had my freedom. And best of all, I had peace. Megan had nothing. That was enough for me. The last time I ever saw her was by accident. I was grabbing lunch downtown when I spotted her sitting on a bench near the park. She looked different, tired, worn down, like someone who had finally realized just how badly she had screwed up. She must have felt my eyes on her, because she turned, and for just a second, our gazes met. She opened her mouth, like she was going to say something. Maybe an apology. Maybe another lie. But I just gave her a small, almost amused shake of my head. And then I walked away. That was the moment I knew, without a doubt, that I had one. So, what did I learn from all of this? That some people will never change. That no matter how much you love someone, how much you trust them, they can still betray you in ways you never saw coming. But most importantly, that walking away is the greatest power you'll ever have. Megan had tried to destroy me. Instead, I walked away stronger. And I never looked back.